Arrived in Las Vegas last night, I found a beautiful bouquet of flowers in my hotel room. And a note from George Burns that said, "Dear Connie, please join me for a swinging evening on the town."
They say the brightest stars often hide the darkest secrets, but no one could have imagined the shadowy truth behind the dazzling smile of Connie Stevens. Last night, under the glittering lights of Las Vegas, whispers turned into gasps as an unexpected letter surfaced. A simple, elegant note from the late George Burns, once her closest confidant, was left in a hotel suite for a select guest. It read, "Dear Connie, please join me for a swinging evening on the town." But what it didn't say was the real shock. This was just the beginning of an untold story. And after 86 long years, Connie Stevens is finally breaking her silence. Her tale isn't just about fame or fortune, it's about survival, murder, betrayal, addiction, and a war against powerful forces determined to erase her voice forever. Behind the Hollywood glamour lies a life marked by devastating moments she's carried alone, until now. Born Conchetta Rosalie Ann Ingolia on a hot summer day, August 8, 1938, in Brooklyn, New York, Connie was thrust into a world of music and chaos. Her father, Teddy Stevens, was a jazz musician whose melodies filled nightclubs, but rarely the home. Her mother, Eleanor, was a singer with a voice like honey, but a life tangled in broken dreams. From the outside, it looked like a family bound by song, but inside their home, things were splintering fast. The divorce came swiftly, leaving young Connie shuffled between grandparents and Catholic boarding schools. The halls of those institutions became her world, with strict routines and cold, distant authority figures shaping her into someone fiercely independent. But even the harshest discipline couldn't prepare her for what she was about to witness. At just 12 years old, Connie's life was shattered. One ordinary afternoon in Brooklyn turned into a waking nightmare when she stumbled onto a murder. The brutal scene would haunt her forever. Her family, terrified for her safety, made a desperate decision. Overnight, she was uprooted and sent halfway across the country to Boonville, Missouri, a small town that promised quiet but couldn't erase the memories. Far from the chaos of Brooklyn, Connie found herself in a world where people spoke softly and nights were silent. But inside, the images of that violent act burned bright. Yet, even in that dark chapter, one light never dimmed. Music. Singing became her refuge. It wasn't just a hobby, it was survival. Every note she sang was a step away from the fear that stalked her past. And by the time she was 15, that passion became her ticket to freedom. She and her father made their way to Los Angeles, the city where dreams lived and died every day. Taking on her father's stage name, Connie Stevens set out to make her own mark. But breaking into Hollywood was no fairy tale. She scraped together odd roles in small films, taking whatever was offered just to get in front of a camera. At the same time, she chased her dream of a singing career. She joined The Foremost, a vocal quartet singing wherever people would listen. The group didn't last, but the three young men she sang alongside went on to become the Lettermen, a household name. Connie? She wasn't deterred. Instead, she jumped into another girl group, the Three Debs, replacing their alto singer at just 16. Night after night, she performed with them, gaining confidence, sharpening her talent, refusing to give up. Then, in 1957, Hollywood finally came calling. Connie landed small parts in two films, Young and Dangerous and 18 and Anxious. These weren't blockbusters, but they were her foot in the door. Young and Dangerous was a gritty teen drama about kids on the edge, street racing, and rebelling against a world that didn't understand them. Connie's role as Candy wasn't the lead, but it gave her a taste of the big leagues. And in 18 and Anxious, she played a supporting character in a story about teenage pregnancy, a subject that pushed boundaries in its day. By December, a 7-year contract with Paramount Pictures changed everything. $600 a week to start, with promises of it climbing to $1,500, a fortune for someone barely out of her teens. But Hollywood is cruel. Paramount dropped her before the ink was dry on her dreams. It could have crushed her, but instead, it lit a fire. She wasn't done. In 1958, her breakthrough finally arrived. Jerry Lewis spotted her in a B-movie called Drag Strip Riot and was captivated by her charm. He cast her in his next musical comedy, Rockabye Baby, a loose remake of The Miracle of Morgan's Creek. It was a game-changer. Audiences fell in love with her. Connie wasn't just another pretty face anymore. She was a rising star. That same year, she released her debut album, Conchetta, featuring ballads like Blame It on My Youth and Looking for a Boy. It wasn't a chart-topping sensation, but it announced her as a serious contender in both acting and music. Hollywood couldn't get enough of multi-talented stars, and Connie was proving she had more than enough to offer. She became a regular guest on hit TV shows like 77 Sunset Strip and Maverick, charming viewers with her girl-next-door sweetness and sharp wit. Warner Brothers took notice, locking her into a contract and giving her recurring roles that made her a familiar face across American living rooms. Her breakout television role was on 77 Sunset Strip, where she played Cricket Blake, but it was Hawaiian Eye that made her a superstar. As the witty, brave nightclub singer in the crime drama, Connie became a cultural icon. Audiences couldn't get enough of her, and Warner Brothers made sure she stayed front and center. In 1959, her duet with Ed Kooky Burns, Kooky, Kooky, Lend Me Your Comb, shot up the charts, landing at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was a playful, catchy tune that captured the youth culture of the time. Suddenly, Connie Stevens wasn't just an actress or a singer. She was both, and America was obsessed. But fame wasn't the fairy tale it seemed. Behind the cameras, Connie's life was complicated. By her early 20s, she had seen more darkness than most would in a lifetime. Powerful men in Hollywood tried to control her, silence her. Some succeeded, briefly. She battled addiction in secret, a struggle that nearly ended her career and her life. But she fought back. She always fought back. There was a fortune stolen from her, millions she had earned and lost to deceit and manipulation. The betrayal ran deep, and the enemies were powerful. Yet, through all the chaos, there was one person who never gave up on her, an unexpected hero. Someone who refused to let Connie Stevens become another Hollywood tragedy. Every move she made, every lyric she sang, every frame she lit up on screen contributed to the legend of Connie Stevens. But little did anyone know that the real battle for her legacy was just beginning. Connie's role as Cricket Blake in the hit series Hawaiian Eye was more than a breakthrough. It made her a household name across America. The show ran from 1959 to 1963 and was set against the sun-soaked backdrop of Honolulu, following private investigators as they unraveled mysteries in paradise. Connie's character wasn't just there for decoration. Cricket was a nightclub singer with an eye for detail, a woman who wasn't afraid to dive headfirst into danger. Her sass, independence, and sparkling charm made her a symbol for a generation of young women eager to break free from old stereotypes. Fans loved her because she wasn't desperate to settle down. She was out there living her own story. And the music? It wasn't just a subplot. Connie's songs were seamlessly woven into episodes, turning her role into something more dynamic. She wasn't just acting, she was performing, and that made all the difference. But behind the glamorous TV appearances and catchy tunes, Connie was fighting a different battle. One to hold on to the spotlight in a business that's known for chewing people up and spitting them out. Just as Hawaiian Eye boosted her profile, Warner Brothers saw a marketing goldmine. They promoted her relentlessly, casting her across TV shows and pushing her music at the same time. Around this period, she recorded the cheeky duet Kooky, Kooky, Lend Me Your Comb with Ed Burns from 77 Sunset Strip. It became a cultural phenomenon, racing up the Billboard charts, embedding itself in pop history and painting Connie as the fun-loving girl next door. Then came 16 Reasons in 1960. It wasn't just a hit, it was an anthem. Number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, just as big in the UK, and everywhere you turned, Connie's voice was playing. Teens idolized her. She had the style, the attitude, and the energy of a new era. But as fast as Hollywood builds you up, it's just as quick to move on. When Hawaiian Eye ended in 1963, Connie found herself at a crossroads. She'd played Cricket Blake for years, but Hollywood wasn't offering her the kind of roles she craved. Sure, she starred in films like Parrish and Susan Slade opposite Troy Donahue in 1961, romantic dramas that drew attention, but they didn't elevate her career the way she'd hoped. And the music world, that was shifting under her feet. Her bubblegum pop hits faded as rock and roll and other genres took over. Still, Connie wasn't one to give up without a fight. She clashed with Warner Brothers, demanding more creative control and a chance at bigger roles. She even lobbied to audition for My Fair Lady in 1962, but the studio flatly refused. The result? A very public battle that ended with Warner Brothers cutting ties. Just like that, the steady stream of high-profile gigs dried up. But if anyone thought Connie Stevens would quietly fade away, they were wrong. She reinvented herself in the late 1960s and into the 1970s, trading the sound stages of Hollywood for the smoky lights of Las Vegas nightclubs. Her live performances became a lifeline, mixing jazz standards with her old pop hits, charming audiences in Vegas, New York, and beyond. In 1967, she even graced Broadway in The Star-Spangled Girl, winning a Theatre World Award. It wasn't the glitz of early Hollywood, but it was her way of staying relevant in an industry that rarely gave second chances. Still, behind the curtain, life was far from glamorous. After divorcing singer Eddie Fisher, Connie found herself raising their two daughters, Jolie and Tricia Lee Fisher, on her own. Money was tight. She picked up roles wherever she could, like in Grease 2 in 1982 and Back to the Beach in 1987, but they were far cries from her heyday. Her personal life was riddled with heartbreak and secrets she'd kept hidden for years. Connie's first marriage to actor James Stacey in 1963 had seemed like a fairy tale at first, but behind closed doors, things took a dark turn. Stacey was known for his intense temper, and their relationship quickly became volatile. Though Connie kept quiet at the time, it would later emerge that the marriage was plagued by emotional and physical abuse. By 1966, it was over. James Stacey, once poised for stardom, found a measure of success on TV, especially with his role in Lancer in 1968. But tragedy struck in 1973 when a horrific motorcycle accident left him a double amputee and took the life of his girlfriend. Despite this, Stacey clawed his way back, earning Emmy nominations and showing resilience in the face of devastating loss. But demons lingered, and his later years were shadowed by personal turmoil, brief marriages, and scandal. For Connie, moving on meant a second marriage, this time to Eddie Fisher. Their union sparked scandal from day one. Fisher was still legally married to Elizabeth Taylor when he and Connie started their romance, and by the time his divorce was finalized, Connie was already pregnant with their daughter Jolie. Their marriage was chaotic, with both battling personal demons, including addiction. In 1968, Tricia Lee Fisher was born, but by 1969, Connie and Eddie were divorced. Fisher's once glittering career had spiraled into infamy, more famous for his failed marriages than his music. His time with Connie was just another chapter in a long, messy story. Left to raise two daughters on her own, Connie faced a harsh reality. Hollywood was changing, roles were scarce, but she refused to give up. She worked tirelessly, both on stage and off, making sure Jolie and Tricia Lee had a stable life. Connie even took charge behind the camera, directing and producing later in her career, including the 1997 feature film Saving Grace. She built businesses outside of acting, including launching her own skincare line, Forever Spring, which became surprisingly successful. Through sheer grit, she created a life where she was no longer dependent on Hollywood's fickle spotlight. And yet, the tragedies didn't stop. Connie's health became a growing concern. Over the years, she battled multiple illnesses, including strokes that left her struggling to recover. There were whispers of financial troubles, and stories of lawsuits, even rumors that some of her closest allies betrayed her trust. But in one of the darkest periods of her life, when it seemed the world had turned its back on her, an unexpected hero stepped in. Her daughters, Jolie and Tricia Lee, not only stood by their mother, but became her fiercest protectors. They worked tirelessly to ensure Connie got the care she needed and celebrated her legacy while she was still here to see it. Today, Connie Stevens' story isn't just one of Hollywood glamour. It's a testament to survival. She rose from the tough streets of Brooklyn, witnessed horrors as a child that haunted her for decades, and faced the brutality of the entertainment industry head-on. She survived failed marriages, health crises, and financial ruin, yet somehow found the strength to keep going. Her story is a reminder that beneath the surface of stardom lies a complex, often painful, but deeply human experience. Connie Stevens knew how to weather a storm. Money had been tight, and raising two daughters in the unforgiving world of Hollywood without steady work was no small task. But where many would have folded, Connie chose to stand tall. She refused to let history repeat itself. Having endured chaotic relationships and a career marked by highs and devastating lows, she made the bold decision not to remarry. Instead, she zeroed in on creating a better life for her family, focusing on her daughters and building a future that wasn't dependent on the unpredictable whims of the entertainment industry. By the 1990s, when most stars of her era had faded into nostalgia, Connie reinvented herself. No longer just the bubbly blonde on TV screens, she became a savvy businesswoman, launching a beauty empire that changed everything. Her skincare line, Forever Spring, wasn't just a vanity project, it was a lifeline. And it wasn't just about the money. For the first time in years, she had real control. After a lifetime of being told what roles she could play or how she should look, she was finally calling the shots. And this time, success was all hers. This bold move into business wasn't just luck. It was timing, grit, and a lifetime of learning how to survive. Her daughters, Jolie Fisher and Tricia Lee Fisher, grew up watching their mother reinvent herself time and again. They didn't just inherit their mother's talent, they inherited her tenacity. Jolie became a television star in her own right, playing Paige Clark on Ellen, and later starring in sitcoms and stage productions. Tricia followed her mother into the spotlight, first singing in Connie's Las Vegas shows, and later taking on acting roles in films like Pretty Smart and Stick. She even dabbled in music, releasing her own album in 1990. Both women have often credited their mother's example as the blueprint for navigating the chaos of Hollywood with strength and self-respect. What Connie did next shocked everyone. Long before celebrity beauty brands became a trend, Stevens was already building her own empire. In 1989, she launched Forever Spring, a skincare line that quickly gained traction thanks to her personal promotions on the Home Shopping Network. It was a risk. She had to cover all her own expenses until the product sold, but Connie knew what she was doing. Her charisma and authenticity made her sales pitches more than just marketing. Customers didn't just see a product, they saw someone they trusted. Forever Spring wasn't just a success, it was a phenomenon, pulling in millions and securing Connie's financial independence for the first time in decades. At one point, Home Shopping Network invested over $1 million in her line, but she still had to make it work without a safety net. And she did. The collagen-based creams and serums flew off the shelves, and her appearances on live TV had fans scrambling to buy. Her talent for storytelling, honed from years on screen, made every infomercial feel personal. Viewers weren't buying creams. They were buying Connie's promise that they too could reinvent themselves. But not everyone was thrilled about her success. Her former manager, Norton Stein, filed a lawsuit claiming he was owed a percentage of her booming business. Connie denied the allegations, but the lawsuit highlighted just how successful she had become. No role was too small. Each was a testament to her unwillingness to disappear quietly. But perhaps her boldest move came later in life. At 70 years old, when many had counted her out, Connie decided to step behind the camera. In 2009, she made her directorial debut with Saving Grace B. Jones, a film she also wrote and produced. It was a daring project, inspired by a deeply personal story about mental illness and family. Tatum O'Neal starred as Grace, a woman released from a psychiatric hospital who struggles to reintegrate with her family. The story was raw and emotional, drawing from Connie's own childhood experiences. It wasn't a glossy Hollywood picture. It was a passion project that proved Stevens wasn't finished telling stories. Connie's life wasn't just a series of comebacks. It was a continuous reinvention, each chapter more surprising than the last. From a teenage singer in B-movies to the glamorous Cricket Blake on Hawaiian Eye, from pop star to Vegas headliner, from a struggling single mother to a beauty mogul, Connie Stevens wrote her own script when Hollywood wouldn't hand her one. And while her career was filled with glittering highs and painful lows, she never let any of it define her. Even when her marriages to James Stacey and Eddie Fisher crumbled, even when studios turned their backs on her, and even when the offers dried up, she stayed on her feet. Her love life may have been tabloid fodder, but she never let the headlines tell the full story. She was a mother first, a businesswoman second, and an entertainer always. Connie's daughters often say she showed them how to survive in a town that eats people alive. Jolie and Tricia didn't just inherit fame, they inherited fight, and they carried it forward in their careers, their families, and their lives, just like their mother taught them. Connie Stevens proved you can lose everything and still find a way to rebuild, bigger and better than before. Her journey from beloved actress to director, entrepreneur, and advocate proves that even in the face of hardship, resilience can leave an unforgettable mark. And that's Connie Stevens, unstoppable, unforgettable, and always reinventing. Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned. Hollywood's next big story is coming.